701. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. Thanks for coming on this beautiful night. We are gaining on it. Well, yeah. Ladies, there's agendas up here if you'd like any. All right, as folks have a chance to have seen Stephanie's minutes for the last meeting, if so, would someone like to move it?
So moved.
So moved by Don,
Second.
second by Rochelle. Discussion? Any corrections, any additions? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, minutes approved. Randy, the floor is yours, sir.
Okay. Start off with grooming is done.
Yeah.
We have started putting them away and fixing them. The BR-110 had some track issues, but we built new tracks, as Don knows how. We have all the materials
Yeah.
for that, so. We actually got 5 years out of those, which normally is 3 years, maybe 4. So we did good.
Always seems to me that it's very much in keeping with how many times it has to go across macadam.
Yeah, well.
You have it
also-
situated pretty well, you don't have to do that
with
so
that
much.
one because now we have it only does its retirement job for 2 miles out of Mason Lake, so.
Right, and the past couple winters were not.
No,
Yeah, you're a little light.
running,
not heavy on hours. Yeah.
Yeah. So we have no change on the boiler for the wash bay, which is starting to get to my nerves a little bit. That thankfully it was the end of the winter, well, we're not using it much now, but.
Right, but still.
We also have not much change in the progress for the remainder of the payment for this parking lot that we did last fall. In
The addition.
January, we called the insurance company and said, where's the rest of our money? Because they held back a certain percentage. And they said, oh, we're gonna get right on that. And in March, we reiterated that and found out that in January, they never really did anything. And they apologized, and now it's supposedly getting further. But we'll soon find out. Hopefully Betsy will get some progress reports from them. I really don't know what the holdup is. Obviously, the parking lot is paved, and it was only a small amount over what we expected in last year's paving costs. That was kind of logical.
Yeah.
And the good news is, we received the check for the partial payment of our first partial payment of the bridge project on Fish Mountain Road. We submitted $42,000 worth of engineering and that National Grid bill check for moving the power poles on February 27th. And on March 20th, we received a check.
Wow.
So not even a month.
That
That's
would
pretty
be-
impressive for
That'd be great if that continued with
continues
it.
on. That would be awesome, especially the next few that are probably gonna be a little larger.
A little bit, yeah.
So we like their attitude so far, and I was very glad to see that the man that got put in charge of from FEMA to the state guy is one that's been working with me all the way through this. So I
Nice.
think that,
Continuity.
yeah, it was kind of
That's
nice.
good. Very good.
Also, I gave you a rough draft that Chris Rhodes, myself, and Craig Small worked on this last week for a contract between the two towns to move their runoff water, drainage water, let's call it, from their new facility to the village water treatment. Just like we do, use it for ours, the water truck has a permit through this county to haul it. I suspect at least once a month that this is going to happen. So it'll be $53,000. It's not a large amount of revenue. It's going to take an hour, hour and a half for a man to go out there. They're in this, they're responsible for pumping it into our truck. They're responsible for keeping the contract with the village so that we don't get down there and they say, oh no, we don't have that here.
Right, but they're making their own arrangements with the village on the offload.
Correct, that's what this is.
Yep.
They have to have a, contract with them.
Mhm.
Also this says that, if for whatever reason they don't give us what they say they're going to give the village, as far as doesn't have any speedy dry in it, any oil deposits in it, all that, we're
Right.
bringing it back to them. It's not like we're stuck with it. So,
Yeah, nor should we be.
this is not a, we're doing this for intermunicipal, relations, let's put it
Yeah,
that way.
it's the right thing
It's
to
not
do, they're
gonna
our
cost
neighbors.
the town taxpayers anything, but it's also not gonna get us in any deep water, using waters.
Should there be a additional whereas in here that the town of Lake Pleasant can cancel the agreement at any time? The town of Arietta doesn't hold up to it?
We can put that in there.
I think that would be a good thing to do.
I was thinking more, how's the tanker holding up? I mean, if at any point the tanker is no longer a functioning motor vehicle, what does that do for us?
Well, either way, we need one for our own. So whatever we get, the tank itself is stainless steel, so that's not going anywhere anytime.
Good.
So that's a lot, that's why it's still around at this point in time. And the truck is, with some minor repairs, we only put 250, 300 miles a year on it.
Okay.
Because it only goes around town for water and roads in the springtime to
Yes.
Sweeple. And then it goes once a month or twice a month down to the village and back. So it's very,
Enough so
Yes,
that
we-
parts don't start to freeze up on it, but not enough to
Right.
put any
and
damage on
this
it.
actually might help a little bit of that part.
Okay.
Running it a little bit more here and there. But also, I think in the first couple of paragraphs here, it says, they're gonna call us and we're going to set up the time. It's not
Yeah,
like
I was wondering.
They call, we haul.
If you were
That's-
convenient there, it says, arrange a time that is mutually convenient for both towns to hold the water. Maybe an added, a week's notice as well, just for you to be able to schedule men
Right.
and truck.
Yeah, I was just trying to sum it up as when it's convenient. I mean,
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
if it's not convenient, obviously, we're not going.
Mutually convenient.
and with Don's, the addition of it, the town would be able to cancel, this agreement within 30 days' notice if conditions are not met. Would kind of, I think, round this thing out a little bit.
Yeah, because we do have the permit on it. And
Right.
we don't want to lose a permit, not that the
course.
county would be
Right,
very free on doing
right,
it.
but it's also the foreign matter, as he said, if you're not diligent, the way you guys have been about keeping that floor dry stuff from
Right.
flowing into those drains on a regular basis. It's tough, I've been down there for many years. That plant can get forcaca in a hurry if you're
Right.
putting in things that aren't right.
Yeah, and their other option is do it themselves, and they don't wanna get into that expense.
No.
And another permit, from the county to haul it. And then the next one is to hire an outside contractor, which they got a price on, which is, they won't tell me the price, but it's that.
Good negotiating skills there, not telling you. Understood.
They are bringing this to their board tonight also, and I said, we'll hash out any changes from there, and then we'll, present the board to the final.
And-
So I will
but they're look-
gladly add that we can back out of this at any point. in
They're
time.
looking to move this along, is that?
Yeah, they wanna get their ducks in a row so they can get their APA stuff
I'm
and
not
all that.
problem with approving it pending the changes, do you?
But, I mean.
How much
bring
does
this
the
back.
permit,
Bring it
does the
back.
permit every year cost us to have the tanker?
Nothing.
Nothing, okay.
The county covers the
They
permit.
just- They just get the permit, so.
Okay.
So do you think 250 will cover it?
Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, the
an hour and a half
250 is-
of Man time and the
Right.
rest is wear and tear on the truck.
The 250 is maintenance
fuel.
for the truck and,
Yeah,
I just
Okay.
don't think we
So-
should get as much as we can from them.
you didn't say
You wanna put
that.
that on record?
Well, I'm sure they said we wanna
Mutual
do it as cheap
aid.
as we can.
So, when they come back to me with any changes, then we'll make another one.
All right, fine, then we'll take this under advisement and move on. Okay,
That's all I have.
Thank you.
nothing on building?
More
Yes,
than the boiler wasn't.
Oh, well, those buildings, yeah.
and fixing the display case.
Oh, yes,
Display
we spent some man hours repairing a display case.
Kathy
for
broke?
us.
Yeah,
Okay.
but Kathy couldn't call George and say,
Wow,
fix it.
thanks, Randy.
Thank you.
Old business, Kathy, anything fresh on the SDR?
We're meeting Wednesday. We still have not heard from the attorney. You know, I'm waiting for those answers, but the committee is meeting. I've shared with them the various letters and minutes, you know, comments from the public at minutes, so that we can see if there's any adjustments we want to make before we bring it back to the board on the 17th.
Great.
Not hearing from the attorney is a little frustrating when we're meeting Wednesday, but
Right. This is our girl.
I guess, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that can be very next day, it can be 8-10 days before you hear.
Yeah. We'll see.
Right. Well, it's a difficult task you're doing.
Well,
Hang in there.
It's a great team.
Yeah, it is. I'm still a little disappointed that the village is probably not gonna go along with
They're gonna-
the end report, but
They're gonna pick what they want and,
Yeah.
and watch and see and,
will the trustee from the board, will she continue to make the
I
meetings?
invited her to continue.
Good.
And
That
I,
would be smart.
you know, that way they're abreast of what's going on and, you know, we'll go through a season, see what happens.
Next is the state campground update. I have personally no new news. It comes in from a number of, it comes in through your office, it comes in through Roost, it comes in over the portal, but the only, I don't know, movement forward is that the county, having sponsored the job fair, that they're at least out there trying to get employees.
Betsy and I did confront the
Yes.
state guy at the
Job fair, yeah.
And again, there wasn't any real answers.
Not, and particularly not that high ranking, right, the fellow who,
He was, yeah, he was the guy,
for this region.
yeah.
Okay.
Not the director, but
No.
he was higher up, he wasn't just a employee.
It seems there's momentum and then there isn't. It just
Right.
keeps running into,
Nobody will give you an answer.
imagine that, dealing with the state. You know, I personally think that we've got to make our own momentum from time to time. We had that going when Casey was making the postcards, and you know, you get a certain strength in numbers, and then like any of these activities, they lose a little steam, and
Yeah.
and they say, oh well, that's so far off, but of course it really isn't.
No,
I think we have to be proactive as much as we can be at what is really the ground level. It seems anyone reasonable would see that these two of the most important campsites in our own town, not like they plucked them from, you know, Governor and a little bit of Schroon Lake here and there. It seems like we're being unjustly punished. And they're two very, very active places that I still think we're not getting an accurate number for what is their census,
no, I don't think so.
particularly in the fall.
But as Ruth says, the fall is the new summer now. The fall is getting actually more people than the summer.
Right.
But if they go ahead with their plans, the nearest place where you can drive in, Indian Lake Islands will be open, but you need a
Yeah,
boat
that's,
to go there. The nearest place that'll be, to here, that'll be open is Lake Eaton Campsite,
Yeah.
which is north of Long Lake.
yeah, up in Sabatis Way.
Yeah, so we're losing a lot of our tourist dollars for
Yeah.
that month of September.
It's frightening, and again, the places we're talking about are two of the more conducive for traders, for RVs, for people who are more likely to spend money in the region. So anyone does, if they go off on their own, if they're letter writers, anything, but we're gonna come back around to another one of these postcard things, and I just hope that the people continue to see the reason for our fight. The next one is the proposed state's property tax exemption for ambulance corps. Betsy and I had some lengthy meetings on this, and I know she met, again, quite a bit with the mayor. We've already established that it would not make a lot of sense for the two fire departments. Obviously, it's a bone of contention because the ambulance corps does not get any length of service, LoSAP, whether it be the town or the village fire departments do. They get veritably nothing, and yet Betsy also met with the ersatz leader of the ambulance corps and said, quite frankly, he wouldn't gain anything from this particular exemption. Keeping in mind, the exemption claim goes at the expense of your earned income tax credit. So you'll eschew 600 in order to get 250 or maybe 300, whatever that would come in this thing. And again, it's just not well thought out from the state. They throw these things up there and leave it for the local governments to hash out. Just before Betsy went on vacation, I had her poll the other towns in the other 8 towns in the county, and no one is moving forward on this. So I don't think it's a question of us cheaping out on what is a very small tax credit. But again, if it's going to cost you money to take it, most people, when they file their taxes, are not going to do it. And I've got stuff. Most particularly, I wanted to hear from Barry Baker, who's, well, he's not completely divorced from the situation. He's in Arietta politics, I guess, a little bit still. But he's the best brain on tax policy that we have up at county. And he crunched all the numbers and then basically said, in a nutshell, this is just not worth pursuing. The mayor, of course, has gotten that same advice. I'd like to hear from you guys if there's anything else on that, but
Is there any talk anywhere about some sort of, I mean, where did the LoSAP for the fire departments come from? How did it start?
well, the state allowed it, and then towns, cities too, but in our case, towns were entitled to start one, and it's basically an annuity,
Okay,
right? That is the length of service award program. So the longer, and again, it hasn't done what it thought it was going to do, but it's done something. It was supposed to be a recruitment tool to get, I hate to say younger, but new blood into your fire departments. By their own admission, it really hasn't done that very well. What it has done is retained, guys maybe my age who would have hung up their boots, but they hang around to lengthen this annuity, this retirement.
and this is statewide?
It's allowed statewide.
Okay.
It's town by town by
But there's
town.
nothing that the state has set up, or there's, I mean, who kicked off this idea? Volunteer fire departments?
I couldn't tell you that, but
Then maybe
my-
volunteer ambulance corps need to do the same thing that,
well, but there's reasons why they're in a bad position. Most of it has to do with not taking, by their choice, it's been their charter for pushing 60 years, not to take any public money. So they are freestanding, right?
Whereas the fire departments do.
Well, we have two separate, the village, which has a LoSAP,
Yeah, yeah.
that's half, exactly half, because I used to sit down there. When the village got into doing LoSAP, which they had no choice, since the town guys and now gals, were getting, but the village board, cheaper, and chose half, which again, it's an annuity, it's a proposal that's done, but the fire department of the village is wholly owned by the village.
Yes.
In the town, it's an
Incorporated.
organization, it's their own, with their own voting and their own rules. But it's the most, in this county, it's by far the most generous. It may be the state max that we contribute towards it. I'd have
Okay,
to
well,
check
I'm
with
just
Steve
wondering,
Sohn.
I'm more interested in, not all of that, but more, if volunteer fire departments said we need to do this for the recruitment and volunteer ambulances are in the same position, then why isn't that kind of incentive annuity kicked off by volunteer ambulance corps so that
It may be in other districts.
instead of this thing? Because
In-
I
in-
hate seeing the same kind of volunteerism
And
and commitment to the community not being recognized the way the fire departments are.
Sure, and you certainly don't want, each and every one of these people are giving back their community and deserving of, credit, applause, and any sort of stipend that we can give. The issue is, like in our county, there are 7 or 8 different ways that folks send out ambulances.
Yes.
Long Lake, there are a couple of paid people in the town of Long Lake's budget that are on the payroll that respond to the first things, particularly, as Randy remembers from his time there, during the week, during the day.
Yeah.
You get so many of these great folks who work all week, who will volunteer on the weekends or nights, but they can't cover these calls that come in, all day long. Arietta has tried a couple of different formats. One of them was, they had guys who were mowing lawns, but on their radio and drop what they were doing, and then they become their first responder. So across, Indian has a separate way to do it. Some folks do more contracting with the folks that we contract for fly cars, that they actually are their ambulance. So it's up to each town to try to cover the covered souls that come from each town. And I agree with you, we don't have any vested interest in pitting any one of these, community heroes against each other. It just, when you do the homework on this is clearly a case of the state
Yeah,
throwing this out. But you asked that before about how the LoSAPs came about. That was a more earnest attempt at trying to give towns the ability to sweeten the pot somehow. So that they would get people in.
Volunteerism for volunteerism's sake is becoming very rare.
It is exactly what is the ambulance corps, our particular speculator region ambulance corps. And again, I don't want to quote him, off the cuff, but that was more or less what Ken Kurtz said to Betsy, that at some point, we all know we're volunteers.
Okay.
One thing you have to look at too is most ambulance corps are actually part of the fire department.
Then there's that, right, Pacifico
So
has
they're,
that, don't
they're
they?
getting, yes, they're getting covered, but through the LoSAP and the fire departments, where speculator ambulance is a independent organization.
Well, it's
Okay.
wholly owned by the village board, by the village of people.
The ambulance corps is.
No,
their
yeah,
own
exactly,
brand.
but they don't, there's no
They don't wanna
joint
be
meetings,
controlled
there's
by
no,
the village.
there's no
Not
joint
affiliated
mission
with the
statement.
fire
No.
department.
Got it.
Right,
All right.
Where Wells is, I'm pretty sure Indian Lake is, Blue Mountain is.
they've joined together.
They've always been. together.
Right, and these things have been floated, when it was really, really bad for coverage for the ambulance corps here, about how we could make some sort of hybrid this way. And it was resisted, particularly from Phil, because it was, it's worked all these years. And that's when, he sent an emissary up to, I was still on the county board, to say, we need to have a fly car. We need to have more help in support of hard cases. But keeping in mind, a lot of the times the ambulance rolls and they have a driver and maybe a
EMT.
a lifesaver, an EMT, but not a paramedic and that sort of thing, all those different.
Well, the amount of training, is just like fire departments.
Right.
They require an awful lot of
But
training.
that ability to have a flight car meet you and then be able to set up ringers or set up things that they would not, it's critical. And that comes at a big cost and,
And
it's
that's how the
shared.
town supports the
The
volunteers.
county brokered this deal, originally with the place in Gloversville that went bust, and now with the one in Amsterdam. But again, if that were to fail, it would be up to the county electeds and the town electeds to craft something else to make it work.
Make it work.
But this particular tax exemption just didn't have the traction it should have
I
had.
don't have a problem with that part of it, but my question turned into a history lesson.
Best I know. All right, moving on. Chamber of Commerce. The brief primer on that one is that we have been negotiating and still not quite there on a contract for the chamber. The chamber's been through a lot of changes. They had 2 co-presidents come and visit with us here, sort of steering away from some of the things that have been the bulwark of why we contract with them. And that has been, irksome for us. So we had another meeting with Tracy Joy and we got this most recent sort of non-committal. Betsy and I met on this, as we have been, and then felt we'd run it past the board, and then I will send whatever you folks feel is appropriate as a response to them tomorrow or this week. I think we need to have more commitment for those events that are critical to us. They may not be critical to them, starting with the farmers market and the beer fest and so on. And many of them, they nod their heads that, oh yeah, we're involved in that. But we've got a 2-page document here that's nothing more than just, whys and wherefores. And hey, take this much space on it and fill in those ones that you feel committed to doing. We already extended ourselves, I think Betsy reported the last time, that she and definitely I would be a volunteer, and we'll try to drum up. That's something that's been lacking for some years out of the chamber's sort of quivers, is having some more volunteers for events. And you guys, particularly if you're on the parade committee, it's tough, and you get a good committee person and you keep them, but that's a year-round commitment, that 4th of July doing sort of thing, as some of these other events would be. I think we're closer than it appears on those pages, but would you agree, is there any events that you feel very strongly should be in that?
Farmers market.
At least the farmer's
Yeah,
market.
that was
I mean,
top of our list.
I would like, they have a list of upcoming events posted around town. I'm assuming from them, it doesn't say that it's, from the chamber. I'm more than willing to give them a year to give it a chance, and if we don't like the direction, but what I don't like are some of the holes.
I
Like,
do think it's a little bit vague.
Vague.
In some areas, I think some things need a little more definition, like when, the contract says at least 20 hours per week during the off-season and at least 35 hours during the summer season. What are those dates? What are those seasons? What are they considering?
No, on that, when you're reading off is Schedule A, that has to do with the time that the office would be open?
Yes.
yeah, and what is off-season and what
Right.
is,
I think it's a little too vague. I do think we're moving a little bit more in the right direction. I think it's very important for us to have an information office open to the public.
Yeah, I think those hours are fine, but
Yes.
defining them better.
Yes.
yes,
If you're gonna be the lead on the Bear Festival, if you're gonna be the lead on the tower, the fire tower,
fire
watchtower
tower
thing,
festival,
let's get it in there. I think it both makes it clear on the things that the community or ourselves or whoever would have to step up and carry. I realize they're at a disadvantage, not just because they're new, but because their director is either out the door or on the way out the door. And one of the things they mentioned, I think is a brilliant idea. Instead of having a full-time person that takes up all of the money in benefits and so on, they're crafting 3 sort of specialized folks at about 20, 15, whatever hours, that concentrates on the things that, that we want. So they're close, and I think they're good people. We just, it seems people get entrenched in their verbiage.
The second bullet. Will maintain design when appropriate.
In the Schedule A.
Yeah, I was looking at
Display,
that too.
print, share flyers,
I buried that. I
maps,
have it.
and brochures. There's no more display case now that has flyers and brochures and whatever.
There's racks on
I
the
don't
wall.
know if it's all online, not everybody functions online.
Right, and that
I
was their
refuse.
input, right, that we're spending too much time, effort, money, in some cases, on this printed media, clogging up the hallway, and no one but, the old parts are picking them up, everyone else gets them online.
But a lot of the old
I don't think
parts are
that's
the
true,
ones
though.
that have.
Well, you would know better, I
I
mean, you're the
can
best
tell
source
you-
here.
So the county office, we, through our contract with Roost, we get books made through ARTC for hiking, paddling, and fishing every year. We usually get them in the springtime every year. The volume of those books that Speculator goes through in their visitor center is more than the
Right.
Lake Placid Visitor Center. So people are
used to be
coming
that way.
through and picking up literature.
I was their peddler, the place where you get that heavy stuff is up on the Northway, damn near to Canada. That's the distribution point, and my wife would send me for Lisa to bring back a station wagon full of this stuff, and that's what a bulk of that room was full of. It seemed like they were flying off the shelves then. It was beautiful color, matte, beautifully done stuff, both narratives and maps and all that, but I'm sure they see more and more stuff that gets formatted for phones, and that's what they want to concentrate on, and the younger your director's gonna be, the more apt it is they're gonna sell you that, but we will, I'll put this in form, if there's anything tomorrow that you guys, because I probably won't do that till Wednesday, to send back
Okay.
our response. But particularly, Michelle, if there's anything that, you're seeing from Roost, from the other communities, you have those joint meetings that I haven't been privy to in years, so. All right. We'll continue. Here on the employee files, as far as I know, the key is available to Stephanie. Is that right?
It is, I had a request this week.
And
first time.
you were able
Okay,
to
but-
get in there and do it?
I was able to get in, yes.
Okay, so as Kathy had said, we wanted to close that loop. I think that is done. The Supervisor tells me it is. If the clerk is happy, I think we're there. The 8-hour comp time for essential employees, I think we had discussed this at some length at the last meeting. That too, I'd ask Betsy for some inside trade there. Most of the towns involved in the county, it was not even an issue because of the way they closed during the emergency shutdown. But none of the towns are meeting that with an 8-hour comp time. I hope it won't happen again. Perhaps we have to be more specific, calling people to say who's to stay home and so on, but I don't see the need for it, and neither does anyone else in the county.
Well, unfortunately, the county went ahead and gave comp time to their
Right.
highway department, so, it doesn't hurt to ask.
No, it doesn't, and the trouble is, as we all know, we live the closest to one of the county barns, and our staffs do talk, and if they get it, why are we not getting it, and so on. But they are getting certainly compensated for all their time out during those storms. A lot of this is sort of a fine line on the office staff, but as far as the folks that come in, they're essential, they're coming in, and it really doesn't matter whether Farber or the governor or anyone else says, boy, we've got an emergency on our hands. When you call them, they go out, whether it's a kind of emergency snowstorm or a real one or anything in between, and they get paid you know, time and a half or whatever it is on their overtime to cover it. How are we doing on overtime, buddy? In a winter like this, is it,
It's didn't really drop off as much as you thought because we had the ice storms that we had.
I live on 30, so that when they go by me pretty regular, yeah.
Yeah, so the ice storms mean you're out there nonstop.
Sure.
Snowstorms, you can let 2 inches build up.
Sure,
Do this, do that. So I'm not saying we're ahead of the game because it was a light winter.
because you never do.
You're right.
We
Exactly.
know that, right, Nancy? All right.
But they're definitely not, you know, I would say that the back road guys are above average. So,
Oh, really?
yeah, because of
Well-
the snowstorms, or the ice storms.
Well, on one of your agendas, I don't know which one, it says Fish Mountain Road Culvert Project Bank Account. On mine, it's still talking about the ban, which is the same thing. That is moving forward. Stephanie's, you know, got all the paperwork up there, and we all went down and did the signatures needed. We got money coming. It's
Well, I understand the money's
a
there.
new account, yeah, I mean, it's a brand new account and the money's there. So, you know, what are you waiting for?
Estimated start time again?
Somebody started this whole snowstorm stuff.
Oh, is that it? One other
The
thing.
contractor is not even, has not called me.
I know.
He
Yeah,
said,
you-
"Hey."
we're now at the mercy of, guess what, another big contractor.
Yep.
But, you know, there were months back, half a year or so ago, we were sweating out how the two railroads were gonna meet and whether we were gonna be borrowing money that we
Our ducks are
couldn't.
lined up, so.
Yep, ducks are lined, so that's good news.
Yay.
Yeah. Now let's move forward. When was that storm? Remind us, Randy.
2019,
I thought so, yeah.
November, we decided. AKA Halloween.
It was the Halloween storm, thank you, that's what I put it to.
2019, and
Yeah.
then the mice came right after that.
Yeah. Right, yeah, all about the COVID Halloween storm. Don, do you wanna speak any more too, cause I had my notes in here on new business for you to speak to the job fair. As it pertains to us and so on, and anything more you wanna add?
Well, I attended, and it seemed to me, I don't know what the attendance was, but there was a lot of people looking for employees.
Yeah,
All the way from the Racket Lake Dinner Cruise, Sagamore,
you had people from Sagamore?
Yes, yeah.
That's pretty good.
and if you get a job in Sagamore, you can live there. So,
Oh, I'll go with you. Wait a minute. Is that with or without golf privileges?
it's dormitory living.
Well,
Probably give you a discount on the
yeah, I'd have an upper bunk probably.
Yeah, I sneak in there at night.
Do you have a number?
I do not have an official number. I know that employee attendance was pretty good the first 2.5 hours or so. Things kind of quieted down after that.
Employee, mean people looking for.
Right,
Yeah.
yes. We had a very good employer turnout, lots of
Yeah,
big
that I
jobs, good jobs, so hopefully some connections were made.
Yeah. We should do these things, and the county picked up the ball here, but naturally, this was a way for us to make sure that we were meeting any obligation the state felt we should be doing as it pertains to staffing their campsites. This didn't used to be such a hard job, but, you know, I was an employer here for a long time, it gets harder and harder and harder. So, you know, more the merrier, and about a week after we had the countywide one, we had one in Indian Lake. That
That was just a couple days later.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a couple of days later.
Yeah, NCON did have two representatives there trying to recruit, so they're trying. They had a nice display table, and lots of applications.
Oh, yeah, they got some slick stuff. Well, thank you, Don. Any other new business that, we seem to have enough on our plate? All right, committee reports, highway, we just had a recent meeting with Randy about some employee issues and schedule things we need to work out. And we will do so probably after the holiday, to have another closed meeting on that. Any of the kids' things, are they wrapped up?
Youth Rec ski program is wrapped up. The final bill for this season was in this last bill pay. So now the next project is working on summer rec. We have had some contact from Samantha. She'll be looking to hire some aides for the summer rec program. She's got some ideas lined up for her trips. I think we're aiming towards one actual like out of town trip, and then one hike beach day
Nice.
each week. So
And is this going to be a joint thing?
that's the hope.
That's the hope
You
at
haven't
this
got
point.
that
No,
nailed?
because they've got, timing is gonna be an issue. They've got swim lessons out there. And
But didn't we tack on to those last year?
they have, kids, people can go to the swim lessons out there.
Our kids are welcome there. It's just the
Yes,
timing and the transportation.
The time and the
It
transportation
almost has to
is
be
an
the
issue.
parents that take
It is
the whole-
definitely the parents, but it was when it was at the village too.
Sure, yeah.
So we need to publicize that more. I had a question about advertising the positions, like, firming up what people are paid an hour for what position for summer recreation.
I mean, as opposed to leaving this up to Samantha.
No, as in help
What's
her
going
out
on.
by
Yeah.
advertising the
Yeah,
position.
give it to her firm and then she knows what she's got to do.
Yeah, and then does the town go ahead and do that, contact the paper? This is our first rodeo with that, it was done before. So the town will say, we need this many positions,
Stephanie would
Yep.
do that.
and then, okay, so, we'll need to sit down with the budget and find out how many and at what rates. Because the rates that are currently, I think, are below minimum wage,
Probably.
which is.
So we would take out of the budget line, you would get that and you can extrapolate how many and a
Yes,
rate.
so we'll have to sit down and do that.
Sure.
That's next for us.
Well,
Cool. They're also talking about trying to get the Little League going again.
Really?
We own all the equipment and she's been contacting people to volunteer, just something for May and June, give the kids some basic.
where is that stored? Is it in the school?
It's actually in the back of the old school. There's a small closet out in the back behind the.
We call it the church, but
Okay.
church school. Well, I mean, that'd be an ambitious task. The trouble we used to run into some years ago was the other teams you play.
Yeah, she's
how
been
far you
talking,
can
she's
go
been
to do
talking
that.
to other towns.
Okay,
So,
great.
we'll see. There is an organized group run out of Northville. But, not everybody wants to,
No.
it's like a mini travel league.
It certainly is.
It
yeah.
is very cumbersome for
Yeah.
the parents.
I
for
mean,
sure.
when many years we had a girls softball team from the end, and you had to have your traveling shoes on.
Yeah,
It's home here this week and it's in Racket Lake next, or North Creek, or wherever. I'm so old, my boys played Little League here when there was almost enough teams, and it basically, was Seco, here, Wells, and very little else.
it's something.
But it's something, and you should be able to get enough kids just because, you're running boy-girl type
Oh,
baseball.
it's definitely modified.
Yeah.
Are you doing anything with tennis this year? We had the
Yes, we did.
representative come in. and-
I don't know what has occurred as far as red ball is concerned, or whether he will be going through PE classes up to the tennis courts. That won't happen until the nets are up, and
Right.
that's not gonna happen until probably the end of the year. It might even be better as a fall thing, rather than a spring. May and June are an absolute zoo at school, between state tests, end of year trips, finals, all of those things. So, that'll be completely up to the gym teacher, but to my knowledge, there's no tennis unit going on right now. They're just finishing archery.
How about with the town, we do golf, is anybody thinking of tennis?
You mean like instructors and lessons and all of those things, the way we do with golf?
Yeah,
I don't know of anybody that is, but it's something to think about.
Yeah.
Well, of course, with golf, we basically just provide the funds, and Christie does the
Yeah.
lessons, whatever fee she sets, right?
Yes,
That was something that the last couple of years was static. I mean, it was well attended for, oh, no?
no, it's, the attendance has dropped.
It has, okay. I didn't ask it.
I think there's probably, we had less than 10 last year.
And is that's the one that gets the junior?
They get so many lessons and they get a membership for the year.
Yeah, because the membership, I mean, it's very low for all of us, but the membership for the youth it's great. I mean, it's a scary low.
Yeah.
When you compare that, and I'm not, saying anything against the ski lessons, when you compare giving the kid the option to go play golf on a reasonably good golf course, all season long, as opposed to how much it costs us to do some of these bigger things, I'm surprised that this was only 10.
Yeah.
Take advantage of it, The membership is free to
Well,
you.
we'll definitely put out a poster or a flyer about it soon.
Great. Other committees?
I was gonna report short-term rentals under committee reports because it wasn't on the agenda and that's already taken care of.
We jumped on it. Anyone like to pay the bills?
I haven't been to the room.
Which,
I'll second.
I apologize, they're here late tonight, so,
I stopped this afternoon, they were gone. I'll get to them.
okay.
I'm sure they're fine. Rochelle went through them with her legal eyes.
Any discussion? Other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We need to pay our bills.
Yes, we do.
Public comment. Shorty, you have the floor.
Bart Schoonmaker sent me an email the other day, and it was said about 7 underrated towns in the Adirondacks. There was a list of 7 underrated towns.
Yep, I saw that on Facebook.
Speculator, Lake Pleasant made the list.
They did.
We did.
I wish they were a little more intimate. Yeah, but intimate about our own communities. It seems like they got that off of another site and did a composite for all the time, not just for ours. But it's still, eyeballs are eyeballs. And these are the kind of things that get seen with people who live in Erie County or Long Island.
Gets
They
people
say-
looking.
It does, yeah.
Yeah, it was not well written.
No, it's just sort of, verbiage.
The thing it said in there, which I've said for years, people come to Speculator, Lake Pleasant area to relax and unwind when they're on vacation. They don't come here to be doing something every day of the week. They come here to chill out. And it says in that article for people who don't want the hustle and bustle of Lake Placid, Lake Pleasant Speculator area, and
Yeah.
that's what we
Yeah.
offer.
Sure, I think when you're trying to sell us versus Lake George, Old Forge, or certainly Placid, that's the tack we're looking at, is that, yes, there's plenty to do, but you don't have to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Good.
Anybody else, public comment, no? Without, it just
Maybe
seemed,
I have a question.
well, there you have,
We were
comment,
talking
questions.
a little bit about the tennis courts
Mhm.
and that professional that came in last year. Are we gonna be fixing those tennis courts, or is that?
You wanna address it at all?
That's-
Yeah, I mean, yes, the long term is a yes. Those things turn out to be 10 times what we
Oh.
initially thought they would be because of the underlayment and so on. But is there a short term?
Short-term fix? No. Number one, we're having a very, very hard time getting a contractor that will, because of the grant, everything has to be engineered, everything has to be drawn up, it's not, we all know how to put blacktop down, as far as the highway
Right.
departments and the blacktop companies and all that. Getting the grant money is another whole step. And as soon as we tell these contractors and such that we gotta jump through these hoops, all of a sudden we don't hear from them again.
Yeah, the town made these things a long time ago, and there may have been sort of highway department specs. Your grandfather, probably.
Probably.
But So they were put up and people appreciated them, but now when you're dealing with free money comes with so many ties, so many
Right,
So
they have
many-
to be,
codicils.
all these little hoops that they have to jump through, lighting, everything else, water on the facility for, you know, which we have at this one.
Yeah,
But the lighting was really, we're gonna play tennis all night long?
They
Light.
required the lighting? then?
Yes,
Oh,
it's,
Oh, is
they
it?
go by these certain guidelines.
parameters, yeah.
And if you don't have them, you take one of the little X's off the box, now you don't get the grant. So this is how this is all graded on a grading scale for the grant. So we now mentioned this to
Redneck and
another
lighting
company.
at night, put everybody turn the
And
headlights
I
on.
thought I had an in with this company, through the Blacktop Company. And they do just this, they do tennis courts in Syracuse. That's what they do. So I thought we had a pretty good in, we had communications, and then once again, in the last 2 weeks, I just emailed today that I haven't heard back from this guy in 2 weeks. What happened? And I don't know if the guy went on vacation or what, but once again, we've come to a wall and stopped. So going back to my original statement, no.
no.
Let me just.
But not for lack of trying.
Yeah, not that we're not trying, but I'm not gonna, BS you and say, yeah.
Well, thank you, Randy. Maybe-
Kathy,
Maybe
no.
someday.
Just because I've forgotten, was the Red Ball, that association, that
That's
was
part of-
through schools?
Yes,
It's something they offer to schools.
Right, but that was not
no.
linked with the fixing of the.
No, but
In
it
a
does
roundabout
help.
way it is.
Well, I know it is
That's
for the
one of
grant.
boxes that this grant,
Oh, one of the boxes is you do Red Ball
do
with
you have
USTA.
school activities
Gotcha.
at this tennis court?
And,
And that was how we were going to get that box checked.
She was gonna be our,
don't look at me.
no, not she, the young lady who came from USTA was
Yes,
going to
yes.
be our
And she
ombudsman.
has, but here's another glitch that you run into. You can't sign up for that unless you provide them you say that you will put it out on social media. So who is going to advertise for the United States Tennis Association, who gave us all of this gear so that we could play tennis at our school in the form of Red Ball? But who's going to manage that?
Correct. That's a whole nother
Website.
ball of wax.
Yeah, so then you go into a whole nother
There's
thing.
just so many hoops that you have to jump through.
That's
for-
just another example of a hoop. As
Well,
far as I'm
let's-
concerned, let's turn on headlights, there's our lighting.
Let's,
Just another question. and
Adirondack
it's kind of
Solutions.
lost, But maybe think about it, about like some of the sidewalks, it's the same thing with the blacktops, the sidewalks,
That's in the village.
that's in the village.
Yeah, so we don't have any,
even though that,
You're
pro-
in Lake Pleasant.
On Lake Pleasant, I'm just saying,
Oh.
there's some of the sidewalks on Lake Pleasant are, they could be probably better, but I didn't know.
Okay,
My
so-
neighbor-
we have that stretch near the church, yeah.
yes, that, I know exactly
Yeah,
what
it
you're
just
speaking
made me
of.
They
think,
are.
because you were talking about blacktop.
The hill,
Yeah.
the sidewalks that kind of DOT messed with us on.
Right.
Yeah,
So you come down the hill and now the road is over the top of literally Route 8 is over the top of them. We, I think Neil was involved in this, have had many discussions with DOT and they now consider that sidewalk extinct. And it is I'm gonna go back into this word, a sluice. So it is a trough for water to flow down. And it is a drainage device. I've gotten many answers from them. Because my first couple of years, I chased this down, because I wanted state to come back in, since they went and moved the road over the top of the sidewalk.
Right.
At that point in time, the powers that be should have been all over them
yeah.
to get new sidewalks. Because that's when that construction project, that's when it should have happened.
I will stand
Now
up
that
for
it's-
my predecessor. When I first came in behind Frank, Frank had waged a pretty good fight on this and was telling me, he says, you can keep doing it, but it's a loser. And I said, well, yeah, he says, look, they've got the road higher than our ersatz sidewalk. And so there is no other thing but that it's going to be mud or
Right.
washed out. It's going to be a sluice. He, on the other hand, was pushing for a very ambitious, through the APA, very ambitious hiking path. that would have literally nibbled off 16, 15, 12% of all the people from the village out to that area, took their property and made a, like he saw all the meetings he would go to up in Lake Placid, that would be a hike path. I couldn't get against it, except it was a bridge too far as the lift on who would come up with this taking, which is, the proper term. So we didn't get that, which was Frank's baby, and it was already a fait accompli as far as those old sidewalks.
Right.
I think we could maybe force the new and improved DOT around here to dig it out, to take that cement out and make it somewhat
Return
graded,
back to
regraded.
grade.
Yeah, let it get back to grade. Because we have a real problem, we always have had, a real problem with the very small exception of in the village, right in front of my house. Folks like to hike, walk, bike, and particularly, pushing babies and carriages. You walk from here to the inn, and if you didn't have a hip dislocation, you would have, because you're on this sort of horrible grade. There's been so many layers. Shorty's reported on this 100 times. Pictures in front of his house. Now the picture, it's a mountain Route 8 has developed. But what it's done is making it almost impossible for folks to walk safely, or run safely, or push a baby carriage, more important.
Right, well, the baby carriage kind of brings up a joke to me, is in some of my pictures when I was doing this, I literally met a gentleman walking down the road with a baby carriage. And I said, I gotta ask this, why are you not using the sidewalk? He goes, because I value my baby carriage more, because of all the holes and cracks and bangs and bumps. And I said, would you mind if I took a picture? And I had to explain why. And he goes, you're kidding, you're really here for that? And I said, yes, I'm really here to take pictures of all the way up to here, I'm fighting this battle. And I got nowhere with it. I mean, literally, I got nowhere, except for walking up and down that hill several times with a lot of people, and nowhere.
Well,
Zero.
I'll fight for her, because she
Until
lives
there's-
next to the post office, and
Right.
it's just like
Yeah.
this.
Sure.
It's-
Yep.
It's not even
No.
concrete, it was never
It was
concrete.
macadam. I think.
Okay.
At one point, it was concrete. When I was a
It was
kid, we
concrete.
used to walk, there was a gift shop in
And the
that
snow
gray
was so
building.
deep. Oh, no, that's not.
Shut up. We used to walk over to the
Barefoot?
Adirondack Market, but then you could walk down that beautiful sidewalk to the gift shop, down to the bridge, before you walked home with your
But
pet.
even if they weren't, cement sidewalks, city sidewalks, or even macadam, it's the level part that
And they
that
were
has
back
gone
then.
away.
That's gone.
It's sad to say, and I've also presented at the park agency some years back on this exact issue, for a place that talks about folks being outdoors, come up from Jersey, come up from Long Island, come up from Syracuse, and, get out. These folks do this regularly at home. Go out and interchange and feel free to run and whatnot, and there's lanes for them and so on. Here, we value the traffic. We value the lock trucks and the traffic way more than we do the pedestrian. It's rare in the whole county to have a stretch of sidewalk like it's in the village, and they're fighting to keep them open. But I mean, just a path that's level would be grave improvement for behind the lake, certainly on Route 8. Folks want to ride a bike, it's not the place to do it.
I was just out there today looking at it, it just made me think about this. I'm just gonna go clean up whatever I can myself. There's giant
Sure.
pieces of macadam that are sticking out there from the plow. I gotta clear it as best I can.
Yeah, we did
So
end
my
up,
name go a little
We're
green.
gonna lift it up.
Yeah, I'm gonna pick
State
some
would,
up. I don't
State would be
care
happy
about-
to sign you up for that adopt-a.
Yeah.
well, in front of the Methodist church, we put all that driveway binder down to hold it in place.
Right, because it kept breaking up
And
and,
about 16 5-gallon jugs in it.
Yeah,
Don't they weed whack that too?
what's that?
Don't our guys weed whack?
That's down by the bridge,
Yeah.
or, down at the lower section, we
just so people
maintain
can walk across,
the
yeah.
mowing
Gorilla
of it
gardening.
at the very bottom, but that again is below grade, I mean, that is.
From the Catholic church to the bridge.
Yeah.
It's a problem, and it's just not visitor,
Yeah.
resident, friendly for anybody who's in any
And I
form
was
of pedestrian.
Told by DOT that next time they revamp the whole highway up to there, that is the time in which we could pursue it. It's not like they're gonna throw it in.
No.
We would have to chase them to get them to include that.
Yeah.
Because,
Well, as an elected, small town guy, you have to watch what you're saying because you're fighting every chance you get to get your roads repaved. And yet, is there a way you could do it where it wasn't this mountain and you didn't? Well, no. Yeah, well, that you just slid down the list, and it's. Go ahead, Shorty. We're revisiting this for the last time.
Back in 2001, the DOT in Indian Lake, Mike Romanich was the head of it, and I was mayor. He said the state was going to redo Route 8 from the Four Corners to the Route 10 intersection, and it was going to cost millions and millions of dollars. They were going to tear out the road, the base of the road,
Right.
just like they did over in Colebrook and Pullman.
To the underlayment. Yeah.
Right, they're gonna take out the old road bed, they were gonna put in the new materials, so the roads would drain properly. It would be back to the old grade where it should have been. When I bought my house in '72, I used to be able to push the clutch in on my truck and just roll out in the middle of the road and just pop the clutch without.
Are you going uphill?
Now it's all uphill. It's 18 inches higher in the middle of the road than it was when I bought my house in '72.
Sure.
And I had all these pictures, I showed Mike and everything else, and he didn't believe me. I said, he saw a picture of the Methodist church with the road being lower than the sidewalk. And he said,
Yeah.
I don't.
And Mike's a good man, but,
Right.
and those plans they had get looked at in Utica and then scrapped for the money because we're not enough
No,
influence
I'll
here.
tell you what happened. I went to a meeting in Syracuse right after they said we were getting all of this stuff. 9/11 happened in September. In October, I went to a meeting in Syracuse, DOT was there, and the guy said, anybody that's here looking for any money for your community, forget it, because any money we've got is going down
Shameless.
to New York City to rebuild it.
You can see
And
that.
that was in
Shameless.
2001, and here it is, 2023, and the roads are still 18 inches higher than the sidewalk, and that's,
For those of us who have been waiting not so patiently to have Route 30 done from the Wells Bridge up, there's only so much we can say in public meetings. But suffice it to say, we're trying to latch on, as Randy says, so maybe we can get some things done when they do finally see the light. Because this is not safe, and some of the work that Frank gave on to me, every single DOT reg states explicitly that it's for their interests lie not just in the motorists, but in safe pedestrian throughway. And none of that is true in the bulk of our town.
well, on that 8 and 30 between here and Wells, you have two scenic byways that were designated by the state in the 70s. One is Route 30 north and south, and the other one is Route 8 east and west. They was declared scenic byways by DOT.
That's
and
all true.
Here you got 10 miles of scenic byways, and it's the roughest 10 miles of state road in the.
Well, you can't take your eyes off the road, you're on the Burma
So
Road.
people can see the authentic Adirondack potholes.
Yes.
Last year, they awarded the contract for that road.
I understand that.
The guy who got the contract was having employee problems like everybody else, and they bought his excuse and everything else, so nothing got done.
We have a pocket full of promises for this spring, do we not?
Well, it's
Yeah,
supposed to be on
All
the
right.
agenda for first thing this spring, so.
Well, we'll see. We're
supposed
in
to be-
spring now.
Supposed to be done before 4th of July.
They did Route 10 beautifully, let's
They
keep our
did,
fingers
they did,
crossed.
and perhaps, again, we hope springs eternal,
Yeah, well, it's getting to be a safety issue now, because
no question.
I go over
Right.
that way to North Creek quite a bit, because I have family over there. But I noticed the other night, you couldn't even tell where the passing zones were.
No, they're gone,
You can't.
from all the coal patch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's nothing but a patchwork quilt.
Last summer, it was a dangerous thing for motorcycles and folks pulled in small trails. It's it's promised, so here's hoping. I'd like to close public comment there and go to roundtable. Don?
Just wanted to say one more thing about the tennis courts and speculator. We do, lease the ones by the county, the town does. So we're responsible for their upkeep too. But the ones in speculator, the one court is not regulation size. So in order to redo them,
The one down here?
Yeah.
Yes, correct.
the one on the left-hand side facing is not regulation. So in order to redo them, they would have to be taken completely down, fence and everything, to extend the one out to make it regulation size. And that's where all the money is going to be.
Oh, yeah.
Redoing the base, redoing the fence.
Yeah, a big
Are
full.
people allowed to just go in there and just hit it around anyway?
They,
Sure.
they were,
The
they're,
one side is
The one side.
one is still open.
Oh, I didn't know.
One has frost heaves, you know, dangerous sort of thank you moms that have been, come of late. But the other one, the regulation one, you can still hit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other one, the one, if we could do it, would make a great pickleball court, because it is big enough for that.
Exactly,
But it's smaller and we could grind down those things and I mean, that's certainly been talked about.
Yeah.
Rochelle?
As you mentioned earlier, we've got the 4th of July is already coming up very quickly. It is a year-round commitment. We do fundraising, we do planning year-round, but we will be starting to get a little more intensive with that. We've got our first meeting coming up on Wednesday. So if anybody's interested in volunteering, we're always looking for extra help.
They give you these cool shirts that glow in
Yeah,
the dark.
we got a bright yellow t-shirt. I think that's all I've got tonight.
Well, it's one of the really good committees. Kat?
nothing new.
Stephanie?
No, not tonight.
Not tonight, okay. I just, because I missed it before, Betsy had put these in my packet. These are various job applications and paperwork towards that for state campsite work. Anybody has a daughter, a son, a nephew or niece, maybe they'd like to work a little themselves or something. You wanna get back into this? Get some good.
Well, I know, I actually am applying for a job, not for the state, yeah, but I did, I'm looking
Well,
to work.
they're here for anyone who
But anyway, they need an assistant caretaker at Louis Lake, and that has housing too.
There we go.
This season. There's an assistant caretaker's cabin there.
I mean, Moffitt's is the bread and butter for around here, but Louis Lake is a very special gem for the folks who have those trailers. And they are, again, I hate to concentrate on who's got money and who doesn't, but they are folks of a certain age, of a certain affluence, who will come to town and either buy groceries. The people whom I admire very much, who paddle out to the Indian Lake Islands for a week or 10 days, God love them, they're not coming back in, not for beer or soap. They stay out there and they enjoy it. But that does not, give that kind of spark to the community, the economics.
I have also heard a rumor that DEC is offering a season-long campsite to employees. So if you apply for a job, even if it's part-time, they will give you a campsite to stay in for the season.
So some of these things they're sending out there would indicate that they're having trouble filling the slots. I mean, I was a little dubious of that, but they seem like they're serious. They have trouble getting folks, and let's face it, it's hard. You can't come up here for a caregiver's job and expect to get a VRMO, BO, or Airbnb. They're too expensive. Kathy,
What?
anything else?
No, I said no, thank you.
I know, but I'm vamping so you can do the bills. All right, next meeting is the 17th of this month, right here at the Lake Pleasant Library. And I would,
Did we vote on the bills? Even though
Yes.
Kathy hasn't.
yes, we did. And you voted it, yeah. Would you like to make an amendment?
I will make the erroneous motion.
Motion to adjourn,
I'll second.
and a second here. All in favor, aye,
Aye.
aye. Thank you, folks, for coming.
Thank you.
There is a little basketball game on tonight, so. Just some-
I'm scared.
You know, it's a fallacy